What's up, YouTube? It's your boy JusticeXFalls. We back at it again with another video. Today we're looking at Final Fantasy 16 first 4 hours preview. So IGN, they got their hands on Final Fantasy 16 again. As the title states, they've played through the first 4 hours of the game, and we're gonna get their opinions on it. So, and we're gonna react to it. So, without further ado, let's get to the video. I can't wait for this game. I'm copping this next month for sure. This is Street Fighter 6. That's what's coming out next month.
Final Fantasy 16 opens with a bang. Two swirling icons, the colossal beasts that series fans will know better as summons, pepper each other with fireballs and lash out with their hefty tails as they descend deep under the earth in a scene reminiscent of Gandalf's plunging tussle with the Balrog. It's a level of spectacle rarely witnessed in a video game, and an early indicator of the huge-scale story awaiting those venturing into Square Enix's latest. Having played the following 4 or so hours, it's a promise largely lived up to, with razor-sharp combat and thrilling boss battles consistently exciting. But beyond the blade, it also engages through its thoroughly fantasy-rooted tale, establishing the world of Phalisthea, its factions, and individual personalities to good effect. It makes for an electrifying opening which, despite being a little cutscene heavy at times, made me wish I didn't have to stop playing.
Okay, so he's hyped up. Simon Cardi. He's hyped up on this game.
The opening section that I played is described by Square Enix as a special version made for media to experience, and contents may differ from the final version. But regardless of if the events presented are identical to the final game or not, don't worry, I won't be spoiling any story details for Final Fantasy 16, just discussing some of the themes at play and the stage they set. Phalisthea is a world that returns Final Fantasy to its more classic fantasy roots, albeit with heightened cinematic aspirations. It's not afraid to throw spectacle after spectacle your way right from the off, with the early arrival of the ice icon Shiva onto a dusty battlefield truly stunning in its execution as she glistens in all her glory. She provides a stark contrast to her opponent, the stony, monolithic titan who towers over the skirmish between two rival factions below. There's a sheer enormity to the size of these icons that even the likes of old school God of War or Shadow of the Colossus would be jealous of. They may be well-worn reference points for anything vaguely medieval fantasy, but it's hard to ignore the Lord of the Rings and Game of Thrones influences here. The story is rooted in the struggle over the 5 mother crystals that tower over Phalisthea, which are the source of the magic that powers this world. Naturally, the continent's 6 nations are going to want to fight for control of these, and so a constant state of conflict rages on. One of those nations is the Grand Duchy of Rosaria, and you play as Clive Rosfield, son of the ruling Archduke. Over the course of the opening few hours, you're transported through different periods of his life as the personal catalyst for his story is revealed. It's not a revolutionary setup for a story in this genre, but one introduced with a fair amount of elegance in an early cadence that maintains a good balance between action and dialogue. This pace and a general sense of excitement are infinitely aided by the superb score that soundtracks the events too. It's worth saying at this point that Final Fantasy 16's opening hours are very story heavy, and while it does a great job at introducing Clive's family ties and those who aim to unbind them, it did leave me wishing I was playing a more active part in it at times. Not least because when you do get let off the leash, its combat never fails to impress. That heightened sense of cinema translates equally well to the battlefield, with each encounter feeling like a real event. In my relatively short amount of playtime, I fought no fewer than 8 bosses, each delivering spectacle on both a macro and micro level, ranging from
8 bosses in 4 hours. That's kind of tough. But then again, he did say this was a media experience. Like, it might vary from different games, so you might not run into 8 bosses that fast in like 4 hours. But then again, you never know. Some games are boss heavy, so you might run into it. Or you might run into something that you thought was a boss, but it's not. It's like a pseudo boss. Like the first time it shows up, it has the life bar, but the next time you see it, it's a regular enemy. It's probably something like that. Like I call those pseudo bosses.
From massive monster clashes to time-bending perfect parry affairs against agile enemies. The first extensive stretch of gameplay sees you playing as teenage Clive, as you venture through a swampy marshland littered with the most goblin-looking goblins you've ever seen. It culminates in a very fun fight against this world's version of the classic Final Fantasy enemy MOBO, a slimy, tendrilled set of teeth with a serious case of bad breath.
Keep clear of its maw, my lord. That thing's breath is worse than its bite.
Indeed.
It's Final Fantasy
It looked like it's
first
breath
real
stink.
display of its fantastic combat in full flow, with its signature cinematic strikes and evades now fully introduced to your arsenal. It's a set of tools that is steadily added to as you progress, with different magic abilities welcomed into the fold. And while I had plenty of toys to play with, I still feel like I'd barely scratched the surface of what these combat systems have to offer. That's especially true when it comes to its showpiece kaiju-like icon battles, which flip the script when it comes to gameplay, each promising a delve into a new genre. The aforementioned opening exchange between two fiery icons, which played more like a flying rail shooter than an RPG, conjures up welcome memories of the finale to Nier Automata in its desire to frequently switch up gameplay styles while never pausing for breath. As large scale as Final Fantasy XVI can be at times, I was slightly surprised by how contained some of its levels can be. Early on at least, they were all relatively narrow locations that funnel you from arena to arena, with occasional forays off the beaten path that rewarded me with useful items. A great example of this is the Greatwood area, which acted as the final destination of my hands-on.
Yeah, I was wondering if it would be linear or not. That was a good, very informative part right there. I was wondering how linear it would be, and if you could travel off of the beaten path and go other ways. But it's pretty much a linear game, but you got a little path you could branch off of to get an item here and there, or fight a special enemy or something like that. Okay, I'll take that.
A verdant green forest, it largely consisted of leafy corridors connecting fights with feisty flora and fauna to bosses of varying sizes. The most notable of these being the scaly giant Fafnir, which looked like something on an exchange trip from Skull Island.
That sword sharp.
You'd better hope so.
I did spend a small amount of time in a much wider open space from later in the game, containing side quests and challenging foes to take down, but this by no means felt like the open world Final Fantasy that fans have become accustomed to of late in Final Fantasy 15. This isn't necessarily a bad thing. Not every game needs to be a sprawling world to get lost in, and in some ways, it was a refreshing throwback to the more linear Final Fantasy of old, even if it did feel a little restricted to a repetitive rhythm of cutscene, battle, with exploration coming at a premium.
I mean, that's most games.
There's nothing old school about the combat though, which feels sharply cutting edge in its fluidity. The fast-paced action really is excellent. So good in fact that I found myself often thinking, just let me do it more. As I said, cutscenes make up a lot of Final Fantasy XVI's early runtime, and while story has always been a big part of the series, I think it may be the sheer speed of its action that leads to the transition between combat and the slower dialogue-heavy scenes, delivering more whiplash this time around. The scenes themselves are all well acted and admirably succinct in their exposition. It's just more of a testament to the sheer thrill of its combat than anything, that I couldn't wait for them to move along at an even swifter pace.
You are a true shield of the flame, and let no one tell you otherwise. Including me.
For those that really want to take their time and delve deeper into the history of Valisthea, however, there's the handy active time lore system. This essentially acts in a similar fashion to Prime Video's X-ray feature, allowing you to hit a button and pause the scene at any moment to learn more about the characters speaking or the terminology they're using. It's a smart way to provide extra context for those who want it, without overloading on exposition for those who just want to zip along to the next fight. That's not to say that Final Fantasy XVI doesn't entertain in its slower moments, and indeed some of them are effective in building Clive out as a protagonist to care about. He's an emotionally complicated character plagued with a tragic backstory that adds a welcome amount of depth. A section where you're set loose to roam around his family home of Rosalith Castle serves as a great way of introducing us to Clive and his place in this world, as he interacts with soldiers in training, magical gardeners, and a bounty of regional British accents. From what I've seen so far, the future looks very bright for Final Fantasy XVI. If its opening few hours of hulking icon showdowns, superb melee combat, and story that delivers on both a personal and global level where anything to go by, then a very fun time is on the horizon. I'm hopeful that the ever so stuttering pace irons itself out over the hours to come, with its ferociously fun gameplay taking precedence as Clive's journey broadens.
I like that.
I went into my time with Final Fantasy XVI incredibly excited about what I'd seen in its many trailers and showcases, and left very happy that very little of that anticipation had diminished by the time I'd finished.
Good boy.
For more from Final Fantasy XVI, check out
They're gonna kill off that dog. I'm gonna be so mad when they do that. I have a feeling.
With IGN.
Yeah, we looked at those two already. Yeah, so yeah, this game is looking dope. It's giving like Devil May Cry as far as the combat. Like some of those combos he was doing was real tricky. And in the air, like he had an enemy in the air, you could dash towards the enemy, you know, and then you could also like grapple them towards you. That was very much giving Devil May Cry. So I know as a fan of Devil May Cry, it's one of my favorite game series. I'm definitely gonna enjoy this game on the combat alone. You know, you have the big kaiju type battles with the icons. That's going to be fire. Like, I could already tell just by looking at it as fire, just by what we've seen so far. As far as a Final Fantasy game, it's kind of giving Strangers of Paradise, Final Fantasy Origins Strangers of Paradise, which is a game I enjoyed a lot. Plus, like the aesthetic of Final Fantasy Origins Strangers of Paradise with the gameplay of Final Fantasy 15, which is a crazy combination. And then the gameplay of Devil May Cry, let's say one of the newer ones, 4 or 5, or the remake. Yeah, so this game, yeah, I have nothing but good things to say about this game. Hopefully I'm proven right, and this game is good, because lately a few games that I've been playing have either been missing or not quite hitting the mark, or over exceeding my expectations. Like Redfall, if you look at my Redfall video, I was completely disappointed. I uninstalled it the other day, like sometime last week, I believe, and that game was just bad. And then a game like Dead Island 2, it exceeded my expectations. So let's see what this one is. I think this one will be on the money. I think it'll meet my expectations, because I'm already expecting it to be so high. I don't know how it could exceed my expectations. You know, I don't know if that's even possible, but we'll see. So, but y'all let me know what y'all think. Are y'all gonna cop this game? You know, and if you got this far in the video, just comment down below what's your favorite Final Fantasy game is and why. If you got this far in the video, just let me know. So, you already know the vibes. Like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. It's your boy JusticeXFalls, and we out.